Hello, and welcome to Intelligent Pod, the podcast where we dive deep into the ideas shaping our world and our minds. I'm your host, Sophie Lane, and I am so glad you're here with me today. Whether you're on a morning walk, commuting, or just taking a moment for yourself, thank you for tuning in. Today, we're exploring a fascinating topic that quietly influences our daily lives, often without us even realizing it. We're talking about how architecture shapes our minds and societies. That's right, architecture. Not just skyscrapers and fancy museums, but the everyday spaces we inhabit. Our homes, schools, offices, parks, city streets. The built environment is more than just a backdrop to our lives. It's a powerful force that can affect our moods, our behaviors, and even the way we connect with others. So if you've ever wondered why you feel so peaceful in a cathedral, or so restless in a noisy, cluttered space, or why some cities just feel more vibrant and welcoming than others, you're in the right place. Today, we'll break down the psychological, scientific, and cultural perspectives on architecture's influence, share a few surprising studies and stories, and end with some practical tips you can use to make the spaces around you work better for your mind and your community. Let's get started. First, let's paint the big picture. Did you know that according to a United Nations report, more than 55% of the world's population now lives in urban areas? That's more than 4.2 billion people surrounded by buildings, streets, and human-made environments every single day. And that number is only rising. Our surroundings are more than just places to eat, sleep, and work. They're shaping the way we think, feel, and interact. Let's bring this close to home. Have you ever stepped into a sun-drenched library and felt instantly calm? Or walked through a crowded, noisy subway station and felt your anxiety spike? These aren't just coincidences. The spaces we move through are subtly influencing our emotions and even our cognitive abilities. Let's start with the psychological angle. There's a field called environmental psychology that studies how physical spaces affect our mental states. One landmark study by Roger Ulrich in the 1980s found that hospital patients who had a view of nature from their window recovered faster and required less pain medication than those whose windows faced a brick wall. Just imagine that, a simple shift in what you see out your window to have measurable effects on your healing and mood. This isn't just about nature either. Think about high ceilings. Research from the University of Minnesota discovered that people in rooms with higher ceilings are more likely to think abstractly and creatively. Lower ceilings, on the other hand, tend to make people focus on details. So if you're brainstorming your next big idea, you might want to find a space that's a little more airy and open. But it's not just about the individual. Architecture also shapes how we interact as a society. Let's look at city parks. Frederick Law Olmsted, the landscape architect behind New York's Central Park, believed that parks were the lungs of the city, places where people from all walks of life could mix, relax, and recharge. And modern research backs him up. Studies have shown that access to green spaces improves not only mental health, but also social cohesion. Communities with well-designed parks tend to have lower crime rates and higher feelings of trust and belonging among residents. Now, let's talk about cultural perspectives. Architecture can be a powerful tool for expressing identity, values, and collective memory. Just think of the sweeping curves of the Sydney Opera House, the solemn beauty of the Taj Mahal, or the minimalist lines of the Japanese Zen garden. These structures aren't just functional. They tell stories about who we are, what we value, and how we want to be remembered. There's a great real-life anecdote that illustrates this. After the fall of apartheid in South Africa, the country built a new constitutional court in Johannesburg. The architects included bricks from the old prison that once stood on the site, integrating them into the new walls. The building is intentionally transparent and open, symbolizing the country's commitment to justice and democracy. Here, architecture becomes a living narrative, a reminder of the past and a vision for the future. Now, let's add a scientific perspective. Neuroscience has been getting in on the action too. A fascinating study by researchers at University College London used MRI scans to examine how people's brains respond to different architectural features. They found that certain spatial layouts and lighting conditions can activate regions of the brain involved in navigation and emotional processing. In other words, our brains are literally wired to respond to the spaces around us. And here's a fun fact. There's even evidence that cities with more walkable designs, think wide sidewalks, tree-lined streets, mixed-use neighborhoods, tend to have happier, healthier residents. The World Health Organization has linked walkable cities with lower rates of obesity, depression, and even heart disease, all because of the way our built environment encourages us to move, interact, and engage with our surroundings. So, what does this all mean for us in our everyday lives? How can we make the spaces we live and work in work better for our minds and our communities? Here are a few actionable tips. First, let in the light. Natural light is consistently linked with better mood, productivity, and sleep. If you can, arrange your workspace near a window or use lighter colors and mirrors to maximize the daylight you do have. Second, bring nature indoors. Even a few houseplants can reduce stress and boost your sense of well-being. Don't have a green thumb? Even artwork or photographs of nature can have similar benefits. Third, think about layout. Whether it's your living room or your office, try to create zones for different activities, places to focus, places to relax, places to socialize. You don't need a mansion for this. Even a small apartment can be arranged thoughtfully. Fourth, personalize your space. Surround yourself with objects, colors, and textures that reflect your personality and make you feel good. This could be anything from family photos to your favorite throw blanket. And finally, remember the power of shared spaces. If you're involved in your community, maybe through a school, a local park, or a neighborhood association, think about how these places foster connection. Advocate for more green spaces, safer streets, and community gathering spots. These are investments not just in infrastructure, but in our collective well-being. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to appreciate the spaces we move through every day. Architecture isn't just about buildings. It's about people. It's about how we think, how we feel, and how we connect. By being more mindful of our environments, and by advocating for spaces that support mental health and social connection, we can build not just better cities, but better lives. Thank you for joining me today on Intelligent Pod. I hope you found this episode thought-provoking and maybe inspired to look at your own space a little differently. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving a review. It helps others discover the show. For show notes and links to the studies I mentioned, visit intelligentpod.com. And I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, your stories, or your questions. Just send me an email at sophie@intelligentpod.com. Until next time, stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember, the world you inhabit is shaping you just as you shape it. Take care, and I'll see you soon on Intelligent Pod.